Welcome back, everyone. My name is Mavis, and we're back into Amelie. Last time we checked off, things didn't go so well for our dear friend Sophia. Seems there's more to, Lilika than meets the eye. Let's get cracking. So we can't access Lilika yet, so we still have to finish Sophia. The rain never seems to cease at this time of year. It pours from the sky in its unending grief as if longing for something unseen. Thunder roared in the distance, enough so to make the young woman flinch, but not enough to make her waver. The taxi gently rocked as the road turned to rubble, and the rubble turned to overgrown dirt track. Outside of the window, Sophia could barely see a few feet away through the raging storm. It made her feel uneasy. In her lap, a letter. She read the words again, despite knowing them off by heart. Dear Sophia, how glad I am to hear that you are well. I am healthy, although I believe I may have a problem with the heart. It has gotten quite lonely, waiting here for my parents to return. I am thankful to have Lilika residing with me, but I still await the day where my family will be reunited. But you say that it is safe enough for you to visit. Truly. I have never even dared to dream of being able to see you in the flesh. If it is true, then I will await you at the address written on the back of this letter. Yours, Amelie. You sure you have the address right? We're in the middle of nowhere. Sophia stared at the fragile, handwritten address that Amelie had left her, had trusted to her. Yes, this is the right way, I'm sure of it. Her heart wouldn't settle. Meeting what could be a stranger in the middle of nowhere on a day like this. Who wouldn't be nervous? Yet there was something else. Eagerness, a thrill. Something beyond mere nerves that turned into excitement. She could barely imagine the hand that had penned the letters she had been receiving for years on end, let alone a face. But for some reason, her heart still beat hard when reading the words that the mysterious young lady of 19 from a manor far out in the middle of nowhere wrote to her. Desperate to calm her jitters, she pulled out her phone, looking to send her worried family one last message of reassurance, only to find that it wouldn't switch on. I'm sure it was fully charged. The rain was falling even more heavily now. In the distance, a building sprang into view. It was surrounded by a tall metal fence with an ornate gate firmly shut at the front. Just then, the taxi sputtered and rolled to a stop, smoke rising from the hood. What the? I had this service a week ago. Is something wrong? Sorry, miss. Looks like we're out of action. It's okay. I think we're nearly there anyway. Pulling the cash from her wallet, she handed over her fare and stepped out of the car. The rain bucketed down from above, soaking her to the very core. She shivered as she dashed towards the iron gate. Surprisingly, it burst open with little effort and not even a creak. Sophia stepped in front of the large wooden door, finally free from the seemingly never-ending downpour. From afar, that door had seemed inviting enough, but now it looked awfully large and imposing. And yet she raised her fist and knocked anyway. Silence followed. Is this not the right place after all? The door swung open, this time with a low, menacing groan. On the other side of that doorway was a fair girl with long brown hair and golden eyes. Sophia, forgetting the fact that she was soaking wet, rushed forward and embraced the girl. Amelie! Sophia, Amelie's gentle arms wrapped around Sophia's back in return, and finally, all of Sophia's worries melted away. My, you've completely drenched. Did you forget your umbrella, perchance? Or perhaps her umbrella got carried away by the wind. Behind Sophia, the front door swung shut without any assistance. I didn't even think to bring an umbrella. The forecast said sunny all day. My fault for believing it, I guess. I can't believe you're truly here. Me either. About time, right? You're just as pretty as I knew you'd be. And you too, but what are you wearing? Seeing your house, I feel like I should have dressed up a little more. No, perhaps it is I that is overdressed. Sophia smiled. Somehow, her dress sense seemed to fit her writing style perfectly. Old-fashioned, and yet very neat and respectable. Sophia felt a slight heat rising to her cheeks. She really was so refined and elegant. Pardon my manners. My dear friend Lilika is here too. I believe I wrote about her in the past. I remember. I kept all your letters safe. Don't worry. As you should. Sorry, but is there any chance you have a towel? Of course. My apologies. I would usually have someone here to attend to us, but everyone's been sent home. Only the three of us remain. Let me fetch you a towel. Amelie withdrew from the hug. She was a little taller than Sophia, despite both being the same age. Sophia peered up at her from below before she disappeared down the hallway and into another room. This really is a manor. When she told me about her house, I almost didn't believe it. A layer of dust rested against the tabletop, along with a few other items. On the settee, a newspaper set open. We'll look at the tabletop this time. Sophia ran her finger over the tabletop. The wood was carved with an intricate pattern that rounded around the edge of the surface. Her hand reached across to pick up a book that laid face down. Behind Sophia, the window began to shake in the wind as her fingertips grazed the surface. It's so windy. She spun around just in time to see the front door fly open, and the howling wind filled the entryway. She scrambled to the door, and with great effort, shut it again. Phew. Amelie? When Sophia spun back around, the newspaper and the items on the table were all gone. Sophia? Oh, Amelie. Please, use this. Thanks, I'll bring an umbrella next time. I promise. Sophia took the towel in her hand. It was soft, but somewhat old. She lightly dried her hair and clothes, but still found herself cold. Then, if you're now dried off, would you care for a tour of the house before afternoon tea? That sounds great. On your right is the pantry, and down that hall is the boiler room, but you shouldn't have any need for those spaces. The two walked side by side, alone in such a big manor. These are all guest bedrooms. I have prepared this one for your use. If you find anything not to your standards, you can let myself or Lilika know. Amelie, I have a feeling your standards are much higher than mine. I've never been in a house that looks like this. No? Is your home not similar? Well, it's a lot smaller. There is no shame in that. You own your own property, yes? Yeah, I recently bought it. With your husband? What? No, of course not. I'm not married. Your father allowed you to buy property on your own? Amelie, you speak just like how you write. I'm so surprised. And you speak quite casually. People usually say that about me. Being here, around you, makes me want to be more formal. What need is there of formality between friends? That's true, too. This is the morning room, and next door, the dining room. We'll be having afternoon tea in the sitting room, here. So many rooms. Upstairs is my bedroom and the master bedroom. I must ask that you don't enter the master bedroom, as it belongs to my parents, who are currently away. From the landing below, Sophia could see the door to the master bedroom. some reason, her eyes were glued to it. Come inside. Come open the door. We're waiting for you. Huh? Of course, I won't go poking around anyway. Sophia shook her head, and time seemed to resume around her. All this walking has made me parched. Shall we take afternoon tea now? Sure, that sounds good. Why don't you have a seat while Lilika and I prepare our food? Oh, I can come help. Nonsense. You are my guest. It would be remiss of me to allow you to lift a finger. If you insist, but I'm happy to help, anytime. Thank you. I'll be back soon. Please rest. Amelie. Yes? It's nothing. Take your time. The room was spacious and dead silent apart from Sophia's footsteps as she crossed the wooden floor. Each step was deliberate and slow. As her eyes searched through the room, nothing in particular stood out. Large windows showed a glimpse of the outside world through thick curtains. The rain was still coming down hard, obscuring her view. The windows shook every now and then, but the wind had seemed to die down a little. Huh? Behind her, a chair at the dining table had been pulled out, as if it were waiting for her to sit down. Amelie? Was that you? Amelie? Her hand rested against her chest, begging her heart to calm. Or Lilika? Whether a hollow laugh sounded through the room or not, she wasn't sure. She quietly sat down in the seat that was left for her. The table was already set, but once again, she noticed a thin layer of dust on the surface. Through the silence, Sophia could hear it again. Footsteps. Well, this time, from directly above. The master bedroom? In front of her very eyes, Sophia watched the scene unfold. A woman, not older than 40, removed her shoes and stepped onto the table, yet nothing was disturbed. She reached up and took hold of the noose. The rope wrapped around her neck like the finest pearl necklace. Join me. The woman's eyes locked onto Sophia's. Her hand was outstretched, waiting to be taken. A rusty smell filled her nose, accented with the faint smell of perfume. Sophia shivered in response, her breath frosty on her lips. She reached for the hand, slowly. I'm back! Ah! Sophia? Oh, Amelie. I'm sorry, you scared me. Is everything all right? Huh. Sophia stared at the spot the woman was only a moment ago. Both she and the noose had disappeared. Yes, I think I'm just a little tired. Good. I'm sorry for the delay, but I prepared the tea and the pastries. So, this is what a high tea looks like. High tea will come later. This is just a simple afternoon tea. Will Lilika be joining us? I believe so. Was she here a moment ago? No, she wasn't here. How strange. She told me she was coming to sit with you. Perhaps she's gotten herself busy with something else. Should we wait? There's no need. It would be sad to let the tea go cold. Sophia watched as the tea filled up 2 out of the 3 of the cups. The third cup sat empty. For some reason, the very sight filled her with dread. She picked up the cup and brought it to her lips. It was green tea. The taste was bitter and musty. With her heart on edge, she placed the cup back down in the saucer, smiling towards Amelie. Did you have much trouble getting here? A little. My ride broke down, so I had to walk for a bit. Broke down? I'm extremely sorry. If the staff had been here, I would have sent someone to collect you. It's okay. It's just a little rain. I just wouldn't want you catching a fever. My medicine store has been running low of late. No worries. I usually carry ibuprofen with me. Ibuprofen? I haven't heard of it. Anyway, I'm glad you arrived here safely. I'll draw a bath for you later to make sure you're warmed up properly. Thank you. Amelie sipped at her tea before looking down at it with a confused expression. A little stale. I'll ask my father to procure a new batch when he arrives home. Where are your parents, by the way? Well, we were separated due to the plague. It took the staff to wait until a cure is found and left me here with Lalika as to not catch the disease. Right. I understand. I spent a lot of time separated from my family due to the pandemic, too. It warms my heart to find another thing in common with you, Sophia. I was surprised to hear that it's safe enough for you to visit. Perhaps that means my parents will be back soon. I think so. The world seems to be opening back up again. So what do you do, locked up in this big house all the time? Well, I usually spend time sewing or playing music. I used to write, but, well, my parents wondered if it was feminine enough. Huh? I don't really think that matters if you enjoy it. Then I say you should do it. Sophia, then what about you? Well, I'm studying art at university right now, so I guess that's what I spend most of my time on. You attend university? Yeah, although I'm thinking about dropping out. Sophia, you truly are filled with surprises. You own your own land and you attend school. How jealous I am. Why don't you do the same? Oh, no, I am not allowed. Of course you are. Anyone can attend within reason. But, well, wouldn't it get in the way of my marriage? You're engaged? Amelie shook her head. No, not yet, but I'm already 19. I'm sure my father has prepared my dowry. An arranged marriage? Yes, naturally. Oh. I don't think I'll ever get married. Really? Doesn't your family object? I don't think they really mind as long as I'm happy. You don't have to either, you know. You've given me much to think about. Much indeed. Now I wonder where Lalika has disappeared to. Well, it's no matter. The evening is already coming, and soon it will be dark. Shall I draw you a bath? That sounds wonderful. To be honest, I'm not hungry, so can we skip dinner tonight? Of course. That's what you wish. Let me show you to the bathroom. Before she left the room, Sophia took one last look back at where that noose once hung. You may not believe it, but my father had taps installed. Isn't that wonderful? Like taps for a bath? That's right, we used to have our maids fill the bath, but now there's no need. Huh. Amelie, you're so strange. I have taps at my house too. Truly, you must live quite the lavish lifestyle yourself. I don't know about that. This is the bathroom. Allow me to draw the bath for you. One moment. Alone in the hallway, Sophia peered back up the grand staircase, past the large stained glass window, and at that dark door, shut tight. A moment later, Amelie popped back out of the bathroom. Feel free to go inside and make yourself comfortable. I will return with a towel in a moment. Thanks, Amelie. Water spewed from the rusted pipes into the steel-lined wooden bathtub. Everything else was silent. Sophia took careful steps forward and peered into the bath. All seemed normal. With a sigh, she finally let her shoulders relax, yet in her mind, all she could see was that woman, with her outstretched hand, reaching towards her. She clutched her hand to her chest. It still shook. Sophia stumbled forward until her hands rested on either side of the washroom basin. Her fingers held on tight until her knuckles were bone white. It's okay, Sophia. You're just tired. Her eyes traveled up to the mirror. It was embellished with a golden frame. She stared at her reflection. She was still herself. It was all a figment of her imagination. That's when she saw it. In the mirror, standing behind her was a young woman with long blonde hair that nearly reached down to the floor and deep blood-red eyes. She didn't try to speak or make any movement. She just stared with her big, dark eyes. Who? Sophia wanted to spin around to confront the girl, but her whole body was frozen stiff. The young woman finally started to move, one step at a time, maintaining eye contact through the mirror. She crept closer, closer and closer, until Sophia swore she could feel her breath from the back of her neck. Her mouth seemed to be moving, but no words escaped her lips. Who are you? She spun around, but no one was there. Ha! Ha! The water overflowed from the tub, spilling out over the floor. Sophia rushed forward to turn off the tap and noticed it. The water that came from the tap was red, a dark, deep red. She hurriedly turned the tap for what felt like forever, and then finally it stopped. Sophia stared at the dark liquid inside the tub. Without thought, her hand dipped in. When she withdrew it, each finger was dyed red. Something about it captivated Sophia. She undressed one layer at a time, peeling away the still damp clothing and stepping forward and into the bathtub. She sank down, down, until everything under her shoulders was submerged in the liquid. It felt heavier than water, much heavier. As she stared directly ahead, those blood-red eyes reflected in her mind. Why not just end it here? You're scared, aren't you? Just sink down, accept your fate. Accept it. She could no longer hear the sound of the door opening as her face sunk down into the liquid. Her eyes shut. Sophia! I knocked, but didn't hear a reply. I brought you a towel. Ah! Sophia's eyes sprung open. The water was clear, and the tap was still running, causing it to overflow onto the floor once again. Huh? Sophia drew her knees to her chest, still facing away from Amelie's voice. Heat rose to her cheeks. Being seen like this, by her. Oh, Sophia, but please forgive me. I didn't realize you had already entered the bath. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. You just surprised me. I'll leave the towel over here. Thanks. The door shut again. Sophia finally turned back to look at where Amelie once stood. No one was there anymore. Not Amelie, not a woman in a long dress, or a young lady with blonde hair. She sighed. What's going on? She sank into the water, although this time fully conscious of what she was doing. Not feeling all that much better, she stepped out and took hold of the towel that Amelie had left for her. Water fell from her body as she stared at the cloth. The towel was blue, similar to her hair. Huh? The towel was old and full of holes and what seemed to be burn marks. Reluctantly, she wrapped it around her body. From outside the door, Amelie's voice called out to her. Let me come help, Sophia. When you're done in there, you can come to your room. Okay, thanks, Amelie. Who is she helping? Lalika? She shivered. The room had become awfully cold, and the towel did little to bring her warmth. She picked up her discarded clothes and redressed. Her clothes felt foreign and wrong on her. Sophia took a deep breath, then swallowed hard. I'm okay. The hall was already darkened. with no light spilling in from the windows. A few sconces attached to the walls were lit with live flames, but it offered little in the way of calming her. Step, step, step. The floor creaked under her weight. She stepped outside of her bedroom. Inside, she could hear talking. She put her ear to the door. Huh? Didn't we already speak of this? You could not leave the house. But surely the greenhouse will be safe. No one else uses it, and it is only a few steps from the back door. It is unsafe. You know this. What's gotten into you? Is it because of your friend? I just thought it would be nice to at least sit in the sun. Then you may sit by the window in the dining hall. Is it really so unsafe that even taking a foot outside will be dangerous? Yes. Sophia opened the door and entered the room. Amelie stood by herself, making the bed. Sophia, I see you're done with the bath. Sophia looked away, thinking what had happened in that bathroom. Were you talking about the greenhouse? Yes. Did you see it when you arrived? I did, but it looked as if the plants inside had died. Oh, that's impossible. It's barely been any time at all since the gardeners left. I'm sure the plants inside are more sturdy than that. Well, even if they have died, maybe we could go in and replant some things tomorrow. How wonderful. Have you not heard a word I said? It is unsafe to do so. Oh, don't be such a spoil-sport. I think it would be perfectly fine. Well, it's getting late now, so I'll leave you to retire. If you need anything, my room is just upstairs, on the left. Good night, Sophia. The door shifted before Amelie could even reach to touch it. Sophia's eyes locked in on the movement. Amelie, would you stay for a while? Is something the matter? Just a little homesick. Sophia sat down on the bed before resting her head on the pillow. It was hard. Of course. Why don't we chat for a while? Then come join me. Sophia gently pet the spot beside her in the bed. In the bed? Ah. Okay. Sophia looked towards Amelie in the low light. Right now, she seemed hauntingly beautiful, as if she were nothing more than a ghost. Thanks for staying with me for a while. It's nothing to worry about. Truly, I wanted to spend more time with you too. Really? You don't find me boring? You're the most interesting person I've ever met. Don't be silly. I am being completely honest. You truly are so unique. I think the same about you. I've never met anyone like you, really. Her mind flashed back to all she had seen. Really, she truly had never met anyone like Amelie. You wrote so much about yourself, and yet seeing you in person, I fear there is still so much I don't know. There's plenty of time for us to tell each other everything. Then tell me something about yourself. Something you've never told anyone. I'm partially blind in my right eye. Really? How well can you see? It's okay. Just a little blurry, really. You tell me something. Tell me something, she thought. Tell me what's going on here. Tell me I'm not insane. Well, when I was 12, I stole the cookie jar from the kitchen and blamed my brother. He was scolded for hours. What a mischievous child. I'm sure your brother wasn't all too pleased. Actually, it was his idea. He knew I wanted it and told me to tell my parents it was him if I was asked. What a good brother. Where is he now? Did he go away with your parents? Amelie shook her head. He died when he was 16. Oh, I'm so sorry, Amelie. What happened? Scarlet fever. So my family was left with only me as an heir. And what worth is a female heir? You're worth plenty. More than plenty. Thank you, Sophia. But some days, I am unsure. It's your turn again. Truthfully, I said before I didn't want to get married, but that's not exactly right. I do. Oh? I just don't want a husband. Then, I'm sorry. Does it make you uncomfortable? No. I have also thought that I don't want a husband. Whenever my father has brought it up, I've felt sick to my stomach. How about coming away with me for a while? Away? Outside of the house? What about the sickness? Yes, away. Away from this place. It's okay now. You'll be okay. You could come stay at my house. I could show you around my school. You don't have to go through an arranged marriage if you don't want to. You would do that for me? You're my dearest friend, and I actually... Huh? Lilika? At some point, the two women had gotten close enough together that they could feel each other's breath on their lips. The two parted with reddened cheeks, Amelie quickly brushing her skirt off and standing up. I should be going to bed. Please, rest well. We can talk more about it in the morning, right? Right. Good night, Amelie. I'll see you tomorrow. Amelie left the room. Meanwhile, Sophia's eyes studied the space. For some reason, Sophia just couldn't sit still. She tried to lay down to rest, but turned this way and that, uneasy. I'll get some water. The hallway was dark, with most of the sconces having been blown out already. Sophia stepped carefully through the space, conscious of the sound her footsteps created. The kitchen was by the stairwell. Hand-painted portraits were lined up in rows on either side of the hall. She stared up at the grand staircase. Each step was inviting, enticing her to make the ascent. Her large eyes stared once again at the imposing stained glass window, and then to the doors that awaited upstairs. Her hand rested against the kitchen door, her fingers dancing over the handle. It stayed there as her mind debated with itself. Waiting. Come here. Come visit us. Her hand dropped to her side as she ascended, past the glass window, and to the next floor. 2 doors awaited her. A chill ran through the air as a scene played out before her. 2 women dragged a man's body up the staircase, leaving a trail of blood on the otherwise pristine carpet. They pushed open one of the doors. The man's head hit the final step, but he made no move to stop them, nor cried out in pain. He was already long dead. The figures disappeared into the room. When Sophia blinked, the door was shut again. She trembled. The master bedroom. From behind that closed door, a voice called out to her, but the words were much too faint to make out. Her hand rested against the handle. Sophia couldn't stop it from shaking. With a careful motion, she pushed the door open. A musty smell came from further inside the dark room. Sophia, peering into the darkness, quickly took hold of one of the lit candles near the room and stepped inside. A portrait sat above a large canopied bed. The curtains were pulled back, hiding whatever was inside. In the portrait, Amelie sat beside a woman with a green dress and brown hair done up into a bun. Standing behind them was a man with an imposing brow and a large beard. A family of mice ran from under the bed and out of the room. Sophia jumped to the side, narrowly avoiding them. Step, step, step. Each step brought her closer to that bed. Each step made her chest feel heavier, tighter. She stood before the bed and reached a trembling hand to the curtains that hid whatever lay inside. A wind blew from somewhere unseen, and her candle extinguished. Behind her, The door shut, and the room plunged into near complete darkness. Amelie? Is that you? I'm sorry I came in here after you asked me not to. I'll just go now, okay? Her body fell forward before she had a moment to react. She tumbled through the curtains and landed on something hard that rested on the bed. What? The curtains flew open, and the moon shone in from outside. The body she was expecting to find was absent. In its place, two skeletons long ago decayed. They laid side by side, one smaller and the other larger. But now, one was either side of her. Her scream pierced through the air, but no one came running. She tried desperately to squirm, to run, but it felt as if something was sitting on her, holding her down. As she struggled, she saw it. Two dark red eyes hanging above her, watching. You won't take her away from me. She's mine. Damn. All right. Now let's see what's on Lilika's side. The rain never seems to cease at this time of the year. It pours from the sky in its unending grief, as if longing for something unseen. Thunder roared in the distance, enough so to make the young woman flinch, but not enough to make her waver. The woman sat beside a man with an imposing brow and a large beard. The man wheezed and coughed, but kept hold of the newspaper in his hand. Hands. The front page read the following: The Great Plague of London, 7,000 deceased. The man frowned at the words. How utterly preposterous! What on earth are those other physicians doing? The lady next to him coughed into her handkerchief. When she pulled it away from her mouth, it was stained red with blood. I'm sure they're trying their best, my dear. Their best is going to kill everyone. Forget this rubbish. Amelie is still well, and finally of age to marry. We will arrange for a suitor before she becomes sick. If we send her out there, then she will certainly grow sick. She should stay here, locked in a room until it is safe to leave. No man will want a woman who has spent her only good years locked in her bedroom. But she will be safe. The lady held her cheek, which quickly reddened after the impact. The Lord glared at her behind his bushy eyebrows. You would do well to remember who she belongs to, who you belong to. The lady blinked, trying desperately to stop her eyes from welling up. Lilika, please come here. Her voice carried through the otherwise empty home. Time seemed to pause for a few moments before a woman with blonde hair cascading behind her entered the room. She wore the dress of a maidservant and a neutral expression that wavered just so after seeing the mark left by the Lord's hand. She stepped forward, crossing the tiled floor with slow steps that seemed to match the pace of the thunder that roared outside. The lady nodded to the maid. The maid nodded back to the lady. The moon reflected from the metal object in the maid's hand as she swung it down into the Lord's throat. He let out a gargled scream. Blood spluttered out from his mouth, and he tried to speak, tried to yell, but it was too late. He fell forward onto the floor, and the tiles darkened into a crimson red. He squirmed and crawled, searching for something that no one would ever know, before he fell, still only a few minutes later. The lady stared at the scene. Her heart raced, and a laugh escaped her lips. Finally. You'll never hurt Amelie. I hope you rot in hell. The maid wiped the knife against a small white hand towel. The stains would never be fully removed. Give me a moment. I need to drink something. My lady, I will deal with the body. I will help you. He is too much for you to carry alone. But my lady, you are sick, and I will get no better sitting here. The two grabbed him by an arm each and dragged him towards the stairwell, leaving a trail of blood in their wake. No other words passed from their lips as they executed their task. They reached the end of the hall and began the ascent to the first floor. Sorry, I burped. The Lord's head hit against each step with a soft thunk. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The house was silent in all other regards. Two doors sat next to each other. Both were shut tight. As the two women reached the top of the stairwell, the maid pushed open the door to the master bedroom and entered. The room was spacious and clean, with fresh bedding left by the maid just the same morning. On the wall above the bed, a newly painted family picture. The two struggled and finally lifted the man into the bed. His face was stuck in a terrified expression, and his clothes were ruined. You will protect Amelie, right? I'll do anything you desire. Then let us begin. Lightning struck somewhere in the distance, lighting up the otherwise darkened room and showing many things that should have been left unseen. The maid removed her shoes and crawled into the sheets beside the corpse, while the lady dipped her fingers into the Lord's wound and drew a line of blood around the bed. She spoke softly to no one in particular, chanting words that should never be chanted. When she was done, she stepped over the threshold and approached the maid. Never let anyone hurt her. Protect her no matter what. I will, my lady. Thank you, Lilika. You'll never truly understand how much your actions mean to me. The lady leant forward and left a soft kiss against the maid's lips. It was brief and gentle, and something the two had wished to share for longer than either would admit. As the lady pulled away, the maid drew her knife, still smudged with blood, and brought it to her veins. Goodbye, Lilika. Goodbye, my lady. The maid bled out slowly, painfully slowly. The lady gasped for air and clawed at her neck. Everything in the manor became still. Everything apart from a young lady named Amelie, who sat in her bed upright, feeling a deep dread in the pit of her stomach, and another young lady named Lilika, who stood over two corpses, lying beside each other in bed. The young lady named Lilika stared at the maid in the bed, her own face, her own blood seeping through the bed, and yet here she stood. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a different person entirely. She was no longer the maid. She was Lilika. Her voice was softer, her hair longer. It worked. When she turned back towards the bed, Lilika froze. Both of the bodies were gone, and in their places, two skeletons. How long has it been? She walked towards the door and found it locked. Digging through the tattered clothes for the long dead maid, she retrieved the key and opened it. The door beside the master bedroom sat ajar, just enough for Lilika to peer in. Amelie sat on the end of her bed, staring at herself in a small handheld mirror while brushing her hair. She hummed a quiet tune, but froze as her eyes met Lilika's. "Who are you?" "I am Lilika." "Lilika? But your mother told me that you had a maid named Lilika. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? How long has your mother been gone?" My mother? I saw her." She frowned and clutched her head, as if she couldn't quite remember. "I saw her just this morning." "I see. Your parents have left to be cured of the plague. They've asked me to stay here with you until they can return." "Really? A cure truly exists?" "That's right. So until then, how about we be friends?" Amelie's face lit up, and their eternal friendship began. How many years had passed since that day? Neither could tell. Time seemed to stand still within that manor, out in a field in the middle of nowhere. And that's the way Lilika wished it to stay. "Lilika, a letter has arrived." "What?" Her blood ran cold as Amelie stared at the envelope in her hands. "When was the last time we had a letter? How exciting! Perhaps it's Mother, writing that she will return soon?" "Perhaps so." Oh? It seems to be addressed to someone else entirely. Perhaps it was brought here by mistake. They may have best send it back. Give it to me. Now I'll have it returned. A peek wouldn't hurt, don't you think? Lilika watched as the first crack formed in her fragile world. "I will dispose of it immediately. Give it to me." But it was too late. The letter inside had already been let loose, and Amelie's eyes had already taken in the words left for someone else. Sophia. "Lilika, I think I will write back. I will let her know that I received the letter by mistake." "That isn't needed. Please?" "Just one letter." "Thank you, Lilika." How many letters had arrived at their doors since then? How many times had Amelie spoken excitedly about Sophia to her? Sophia. Sophia, Sophia, Sophia. It's always Sophia. Sophia is the crack in this fragile reality. Sophia. I have to get rid of Sophia. "Lilika?" Lilika's eyes opened with a jolt. "I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired. What did you say?" "Sophia says she's coming to visit." Another crack formed from the last. It sprawled across reality, threatening to shatter at any moment. "Amelie, I don't think that's a good idea. The plague. She says that it's safe enough to travel now in her letter. Perhaps Mother and Father will return soon too." Lilika forced a smile. "But we don't need anyone else here. We don't need anyone else here. We have each other." "Of course you are, my dear friend, Lilika. But Sophia and I have been writing to each other for... She shook her head, as if chasing off the beginnings of a headache. "For a long time, anyway. I am excited to finally meet her. Won't you be excited with me too? We can all be friends." "Right, friends. I'm sure we'll all be the best of friends." For an amount of time that neither Lilika or Amelie could truly comprehend, the house was suddenly buzzing with life. Amelie's footsteps were light, and her days filled with excitement as she awaited the arrival of Sophia. And finally, to Lilika's dismay, the day came. The pendulum clock on the wall swung back and forth, ticking down the time. Lilika stared at it, wishing that it would slow down even further. 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour passed as the two stood by the door, waiting for a knock. "She seems to be late. Perhaps she's not coming after all, Amelie. There is no need to make such a sullen face. Mayhaps this is for the best. She wrote that she would be here, so I shall wait. With her face hidden from Amelie, Lilika scowled. Do you truly believe it's safe to have visitors during the outbreak? Lilika, I believe we have been isolated long enough, and Sophia has written that it is safe. I trust her word. She would not endanger us. And if your pen pal turns out to be a robber in disguise, what then? Amelie smiled, to Lilika's dismay. She has a way with words that only a woman could have. A lady robber, then? Nonsense. By the way, Lilika, have you seen my letters? I can't say that I have. A knock sounded at the door, instantly halting their conversation. Amelie rose from her place and took a steady step forward before Lilika raised a hand to her. Allow me to see if she should truly be allowed entry. The door groaned as it slowly swung open and revealed the young woman who knocked at the door. She was drenched from head to toe. Lilika stared at her, light hair and eyes. She looked almost like a kitten. Instantly, Lilika's dislike for the woman grew. Lilika stepped to the side just in time for Sophia to bounce through the door and wrap her arms around Amelie. Her blood boiled. She watched as the clothes she had carefully handmade become drenched by someone unworthy, someone that didn't deserve to even look at Amelie. Amelie! Sophia! Amelie's arms wrapped around Sophia in return, and Lilika turned away. My, you're completely drenched. Did you forget your umbrella, perchance? Or perhaps her umbrella got carried away by the wind. With a cool anger written over her features, Lilika shut the door. I didn't even think to bring an umbrella. The forecast said sunny all day. My fault for believing it, I guess. I can't believe you're truly here. Me either. About time, right? You're just as pretty as I knew you'd be. And you too. What are you wearing? Seeing your house, I feel like I should have dressed up a little more. No, perhaps it is I that is overdressed. Lilika stood to the side, her arms crossed lightly over her chest. Her long hair reached down nearly to the wooden floor. Pardon my manners. My dear friend Lilika is here too. I believe I wrote about her in the past. I remember. I've kept all your letters safe. Don't worry. As you should. Amelie side-eyed Lilika upon hearing her tone, but Lilika simply looked away. Sorry, but is there any chance you have a towel? Of course. My apologies. I would usually have someone here to attend to us, but everyone's been sent home. Only the three of us remain. Let me fetch you a towel. Amelie disappeared down the hallway, leaving Lilika alone with Sophia. This really is a manor. When she told me about her house, I almost didn't believe it. Has no one told you it is rude to poke around someone else's house? Sophia walked straight past Lilika without even a notion of responding. Hello? You can't see me. Sophia ran her finger along the edge of the tabletop before reaching to pick up a book that rested there. Don't let her touch it. Don't let her touch anything. She'll break it all. She'll end everything. She wants to hurt Amelie. She can't find out the truth. The window shook loudly in the wind. With a flick of her small wrist, Lilika allowed the door to fly open, causing Sophia to whip around in surprise. It's so windy. Lilika locked in on the object that Sophia had been reaching for. She rushed forward and took hold of it, to quickly hid it behind a cabinet as Sophia reached to close the door. Phew. Amelie? Sophia spun around but looked straight through Lilika. Sophia? Oh, Amelie. Please, use this. Thanks. I'll bring an umbrella next time, I promise. Lilika watched as Sophia dried herself with the towel. Our towel. It's not for her. There can't be a next time. Then, if you're now dried off, would you care for a tour of the house before afternoon tea? That sounds great. On your right is the pantry, and down that hall is the boiler room. But you shouldn't have any need for those spaces. I'm going to save it for this portion. Right here. So that way, because I noticed how long that intro of Lilika's story is. So the next when I do the last two in the next episode, then we'll keep. Then I won't have to go through so much. Sophia and Amelie walked side by side, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Lilika stared at the place where they almost connected, seething with a quiet rage. These are all guest bedrooms. I have prepared this one for your use. If you find anything not to your standards, you can let myself or Lilika know. Amelie, I have a feeling your standards are much higher than mine. I've never even been in a house that looks like this. No? Is your home not similar? Well, it's a lot smaller. There's no shame in that. You own your own property, yes? Yeah, I recently bought it. With your husband. What? No, of course, I'm not married. Shut up. Your father allowed you to buy your property on your own? Amelie, you speak just like how you're right. I'm so surprised. Your voice disgusts me. And you speak quite casually. People usually say that about me. Being here, around you, makes me want to be more formal. What need is there of formality between friends? That's true too. Your words are poisoning Amelie. This is the morning room, and next door the dining room. We'll be having afternoon tea in the sitting room here. So many rooms. Upstairs is my bedroom. In the master bedroom, I must ask that you don't enter the master bedroom, as it belongs to my parents, who are currently away. Of course, I won't go poking around anyway. Lies. You're lying. All this walking has made me parched. Shall we take afternoon tea now? Sure, that sounds good. Why don't you have a seat while Lilika and I prepare our food? Oh, I can come help. Nonsense, you are my guest. It would be remiss of me to allow you to lift a finger. If you insist, but I'm happy to help at any time. Thank you. I'll be back soon. Please, rest. Amelie. Yes? It's nothing. Take your time. Sophia slipped through a doorway and disappeared. Amelie smiled widely, while Lilika just stared ahead blankly. Isn't this lovely, Lilika, to have a new face in the house? It feels like forever. Yes, how lovely. I'm glad you are having fun at the very least. Are you not? I'm always having fun when we're together, Amelie. Should I sever her fate? Or I should keep this dark ending for this one, then do a better one. Ah, I see. Are you jealous? Worry not, my dear friend. Of course our friendship means just as much to me. I value you greatly. Just as much? Indeed. Come along, Lilika. Let us prepare tea. We didn't sever her fate. Did you finish the baking yesterday? The pastries are ready for serving. Excellent. I'll just fetch the tea then. Allow me. A lady of your standing shouldn't be doing such a menial task, should she? Don't be absurd. Even Sophia herself seems to be fine in the kitchen. Did you hear how she jumped to help? I should follow in her footsteps. What would your parents think of that? I appreciate the sentiment, but they took with them all of the staff. I have little choice but to prepare my own tea. I see. Then shall I attend to our guest? I wouldn't want her to become lonely. Would you? I'll only be a few moments. Of course. Anything for you, Amelie. It'll be a good chance for you to become friends, too. I'm sure it will be. Lilika's smile at that moment seemed to hide behind it, an intent much deeper than Amelie realized. Okay, give me a swig of water. Test, test, test. The walls had eyes. Eyes that tracked Lilika's every move. They followed her as she made careful, deliberate steps towards the sitting room. They stared, their eyes bulging, judging. They had no mouths in which to scream, but Lilika could still hear their words. We all sacrificed ourselves for you. Hope, our only hope. Amelie, protect Amelie. Prove your worth. Prove your love. Amelie, Amelie, Amelie. Under her feet, shattered glass pierced through her shoes, cutting her feet. She could feel the blood ooze out, pooling. It was warm, comforting. She looked up to find where the glass had come from. Then she noticed the cracks once again. Along every wall, every floorboard, even through the air, the world was fragmented. It was already broken. Not beyond repair. It's not, my lady. I will fix this still. You can rest. Please rest. I will take care of everything. Anything and everything. For you. She blinked. The world reverted to the way it should. The glass that lined the floor, gone. The eyes that followed from the walls, gone. And the cracks that had begun to wrap themselves around Lilika's ankles had disappeared too. She stood in front of the sitting room's door, which sat slightly ajar. Inside, Lilika could see Sophia staring out of the large window. Her back stayed turned as Lilika entered the room. Of course, it wouldn't have been possible for Sophia to turn and look at her, but Lilika still found herself taking careful, quiet steps. The window shook past the dark, thick curtains. You, who would attempt to defy your fate, why don't we see how long this little game lasts? Why don't we test whose love is stronger? I swear, my love is unwavering. My infatuation, my yearning, my desire, you can never even wish to match it. Lilika pulled out a chair roughly, dragging the legs across the floor. Huh? Yet you dare to challenge me. You dare to test my love. Amelie, was that you? Amelie? Sophia took careful steps toward the chair, resting her hand against it. Or Lilika. You're nothing. Sophia sat down in the chair that was offered to her, while Lilika circled around, as if a cat after its prey. But her steps paused as she heard something strange. Footsteps from above. The master bedroom? In front of her very eyes, Lilika watched the scene unfold. A scene that made her blood run cold and her body freeze in place. My lady. The lady of the house stood beside Lilika. Where before the two had stood eye to eye, now the lady stood taller than Lilika by at least a head. My lady, what are you doing here? The lady removed her shoes and stepped onto the table. Did you come to punish me? Are you angry? I promise I will remove the plague that has entered our home. I swear it upon my undying love. The lady did not respond. Instead, she reached up and took hold of the noose. The rope wrapped around her neck, exactly where the necklace that the maid had gifted the lady should have rested. Join me. Her eyes locked onto Sophia's. Her hand was outstretched, waiting to be taken. Why won't you look at me, my lady? Are you truly so angry? Angry enough to despise me? for but a moment. As Sophia's outstretched hand came closer and closer, the lady's eyes turned slowly towards Lilika. They carried with it a message that only Lilika could decipher. Lilika's body shook. It trembled and trembled until she could bear it no more, and she ran from the room as fast as her legs would carry her. If the hallway still had eyes, they weren't fast enough to follow Lilika. The floorboards, as if made of quicksand, threatened to suck her up and bury her deep within the house. Her feet felt heavy and laden. Every step was as painful as that brief glance. She raced through the hall and up a flight of stairs. Past the stained glass window, which left a myriad of colors over the carpeted steps, and past the doors that led to the master bedroom and Amelie's room. Closer, closer, until she arrived at a bookcase. She pushed it to the side and entered the hidden room. The room behind the bookcase was small, and not a single window faced outwards. Thus the room was near pitch black. Each wall was plastered with handwritten letters. Handwritten letters, clearly, for Lilika alone. Her eyes, frantic, finally started to calm as she took in the words. Her words. Words left to her, for her, and only for her. Lilika's eyes settled on a particular letter. I will look left. What? Dear wow. How wonderful to hear that you're doing well. I've been busy this week, but most of it is boring, so I won't bog you down with details. But do you know what happened yesterday? Of course you do. You weren't there. I was walking when I found an abandoned kitten. But did you know what happened? I was reading the letter, my bad. What happened yesterday? Of course you don't. You weren't there. I was walking home when I found an abandoned kitten. Someone left it in a box on the side of the road. How could anyone do that? Anyway, I took her home. I named her Lily, after you. It's a little embarrassing. Amelie. Wow. Embarrassing writing out like that. I hope you don't mind. Yours, Sophia. What the hell? Wow. Dear Lilika. Well, Amelie, I've spent the past week studying. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it, but everyone needs a break, you know. On my desk, I have a little cactus in a pot. To be honest, a cactus wasn't my first choice, but I've killed every other plant I've ever owned. Anyway, it bloomed. There's one beautiful flower coming out of it. I couldn't be happier. So that makes studying easier. I think your environment makes a big difference. How about you? Do you have any plans? I'm looking forward to hearing about it next time. Yours, Sophia, or Marianne. Dear Lilika, today was rough. I tried my hardest, but I still failed. Don't you think life is unfair sometimes? I was always trying hard enough was all it took to succeed. Sorry, I'm whining, aren't I? I came out of an interview and it was raining. I thought just my luck, but something interesting happened. A rainbow in the distance peeked out from behind the great clouds. It reminded me of you, and then I felt a little better. I hope we can meet soon. Yours, Marianne. She ripped the letter from the wall and clutched it to her chest, collapsing to her knees. She couldn't hate me. She couldn't. She adores me, like I adore her. She entrusted her everything to me. Everything. Her everything. Amelie. The letter dropped from her fingers that were neither cold nor warm. You want me to get rid of that disease, don't you? You won't accept me until I protect Amelie. Is that right, my lady? I'd do anything you ask. So if that's all I have to do, then I would do it. I'll keep Amelie safe, forever. Lilika stood from the ground and dusted off her skirt. Her face that had previously contorted in distress had finally calmed. A smile gently crept onto her face. I love you, my lady. And for you, I will love Amelie too. I should light the sconces, too. Where did I put those matches? Right here. Ah! You gave me a fright, Lilika. Where have you been? Preparing the guest room for your dear friend, of course. How kind. Sophia is just preparing for a bath at the present. I'm going to retrieve a towel for her from the linen closet. Amelie, I think it's best you send her home post-haste. What? Why would I do that? For all you know, she brings with her the plague. Sophia says it is safe now to travel. It should be perfectly fine, don't you think? And what if she lies? She wouldn't do that. Sophia is a kind and good-natured person. She would not bring any danger to us. Did you know that Sophia attends a local university? And she lives by herself with no husband. She says that if I wanted, I could also study. Study? Study. She wants to leave? Leave the house? No. She can't leave. She can't go anywhere. She belongs here. She was entrusted to me. The lady of the house should not study, Amelie. You must stay inside the house and await your parents. But I'm sure Mother would want the best for me. Perhaps while I await her, I could go to inspect Sophia's school. Amelie. You must stay inside and await your parents' return. But don't you trust me? Have I ever tried to lead you astray? No, Lilika. I was just thinking that perhaps it truly is beginning to be safe. Look, I bought today's newspaper. Do you see the title? The plague runs rampant. Put any notion of leaving or studying away for now, yes? As soon as it is truly safe to do so, then we shall, and you will be reunited with your family. For now, it is just you and me. Thanks, Lilika. I'm glad you're here. As am I. The towel. Let me go retrieve it. Go ahead. Alone, Lilika stared at the bathroom door, which was shut tight. Behind it, she could hear the water running. She could picture Sophia's body slowly shedding its layers of clothes before she stepped into the hot water. That image was enough to force her hand. The running water sloshed into the steel-lined wooden tub. A state-of-the-art system. No one else in the country owned anything like it. But how many years ago was that? How long had it been? Sophia leaned over the sink, her bone-white knuckles grasping either side of it. Her back was turned to Lilika. If she wanted, she could stab her in the back and be over with it. No. I need to keep Amelie's trust. She needs to leave, or go somewhere she'll never be found, or do it herself. Sophia lifted her face to the mirror and froze. Her eyes bore into it, as if she was seeing something she shouldn't. Lilika stared back, unmoving. Leave already. Who? One step at a time, maintaining eye contact through the mirror, Lilika crept closer, until the two were nearly touching. Why do you want to take Amelie away? Can't you see that she loves me? Me, not you. Your words are poisoning this household. If we don't leave, I'll kill you. I'll have no choice. I'll just kill you. Who are you? Sophia whipped around, but her eyes didn't focus on any spot in particular. To her, Lilika was gone. Lilika walked towards an open cabinet and pulled something out. The metal of the razor glinted. Lilika raised it up and she moved to stand over the bath. With ease, the metal cut into her arm. Drops of blood fell into the water, leaving tiny splashes where they were connected. Blood still runs in my veins after all. Sophia rushed past Lilika, desperate to turn off the overflowing water before she froze once again. The water was a deep, dark red. Her slender fingers dipped into the liquid as if she were entranced. One layer at a time, she stood bare, her expression hollow and lifeless. Lilika watched as her naked body stepped into the crimson water. Why not just end it here? You're scared, aren't you? Just sink down, accept your fate. Accept it. A knock came from the door. Lilika's widened eyes went from the door to the young woman in the bath, then back again. Excuse me, I'm coming in. Lilika ducked behind the folding screen just in time to hear the door open. Sophia? I knocked, but I didn't hear a reply. I brought you a towel. Ah! She didn't wait any longer. As Amelie stepped into the room to set down the towel, Lilika quietly dashed out into the hall. Before Lilika had a chance to even catch her breath, the bathroom door opened once again, and Amelie stepped out with flushed cheeks. Did you tell her that she must depart? No, Is something the matter? Are you feeling unwell? Your face is bright red. Sophia will stay until she decides to leave. Huh? No. She must leave now. Tonight. No longer. As you wish. I'm sorry, Lilika, but I believe it is only fair after she traveled so far, and she is my friend. That woman. That siren. Look what she does to our Amelie. I will finish preparing the guest room. Let me come help. Sophia, when you're done in there, you can come to your room. From the other side of the door, Sophia's voice came in return. Okay, thanks, Amelie. The guest's bedroom was freshly cleaned with new linen on the bed and a lit lantern beside it. Fortunately, Lilika had prepared the room well in advance. You did a fine job of preparing the room so far. Thank you, Lilika. Anything for you. I was thinking, tomorrow, if the rain has cleared up, we could open the greenhouse again and have morning tea there. It's been so long since we last used it. But by now, a dozen cracks stemmed from a dozen other cracks, filling the entirety of Lilika's world. At any moment, even a breeze would make everything collapse. Didn't we already speak of this? You cannot leave the house. But surely the greenhouse will be safe. No one else uses it, and it is only a few steps from the back door. It is unsafe. You know this. What's gotten into you? Is it because of your friend? I just thought it would be nice to at least sit in the sun. You may sit by the window in the dining hall. Is it really so unsafe that even taking a foot outdoors would be dangerous? Yes. Sophia, I see you're done with the bath. Lilika crossed her arms over her chest, anger already rising in her breast. I just rhymed it because Were you talking about the greenhouse? Yes. Did you see it when you arrived? I did, but it looked as if the plants inside had died. Oh, that's impossible. It's barely been any time at all since the gardeners left. I'm sure the plants inside are more sturdy than that. Well, even if they have died, maybe we could go in and replant some things tomorrow. How wonderful! Have you not heard a word I said? It is unsafe to do so. Oh, don't be such a spoiled sport. I think it would be perfectly fine. Well, it's getting late now, so I'll leave you to retire. If you need anything, my room is just upstairs, on the left. Good night, Sophia. Poison dripped from her voice as Lilika left the guest room behind. The house had a heart, and that heart was beating to the same rhythm as Lilika's. It was frenzied, on the verge of losing control. It echoed through her head, through the hall, through to every corner of the building. Like Morse code, it was as if the house itself was telling her to do something. Get rid of her. Cut out the disease. Protect Amelie. She bit her thumb, pacing back and forth. Amelie will be upset. But Amelie doesn't need anyone else. She has me. She won't be upset for long, and she'll forget. That's right. She'll forget. Her breath hitched in her throat. But what do I do? What do I do? She just won't die. My lady, what am I supposed to do? At that moment, Lilika put her ear to Amelie's door, listening intently. How about coming away with me for a while? Away? Outside of the house? What about the sickness? Away? Outside of the house? It's okay now. You'll be okay. You could come stay at my house. I could show you around my school. You don't have to go through an arranged marriage if you don't want to. Lalika's hands balled into fists at her side. You would do that for me? You're my dearest friend, and I actually... You think you could take her away from me? Lalika's balled fist slammed against the door, each one set of pain shooting up her arm all the way to her shoulder. Inside, the voices went quiet. Or choose to allow her fate. She doesn't belong to you. Lalika? Finally, Lalika snapped out of her daze. At some point, Amelie had left the guest bedroom and was standing a short distance away from her, looking worried. Instantly, she took a deep breath and composed herself. But her heart still beat as loud as a drum, and the cracks that seemed to be centered around Amelie were still spreading at an increasing rate. It is late. You should retire to your bedroom. Yes, I shall. It's nice having someone else around, isn't it? I feel as if the manor is coming back to life. I hope we see Mother and Father soon. I'm sure we will. Shall I see you to bed? Yes, please. The hallway was darkened, with only a few sconces and candles lit along the way, and Lalika relished in it. On a night like this, long ago in the past, she had sealed her fate, along with Amelie's, and tonight she would seal the fate of yet another person. The two rose up the grand staircase, side by side. Moonlight drifted in through the stained glass window. This seemed to be the only place free from those cracks. If she squinted, she could almost see it, almost hear it. That head, hitting each step with a loud thunk, those eyes would never open again to look upon a woman with scorn. That hand would never be raised to leave a mark on her pristine skin. The sound filled her with joy, and the thought of repeating that fateful night left her footsteps light with excitement. Lalika, may I ask you a question? Certainly. Have you ever heard of a woman loving another woman as a woman would love a man? Huh? Where did you hear about such a thing? Nowhere in particular. It was just a thought that came into my mind. I think you're overtired because of all the excitement, Amelie. I think it's best you get some rest. Yes, all right. Good night, Lalika. Lalika, who was seated on the edge of Amelie's bed, stood with unsteady feet. Standing in the doorway, she looked back at Amelie. As her hand rested against the door, a sudden pang went through Lalika's cold heart. She is important to you, isn't she? Of course. Her words have always been something that have brightened my day. Even if she were to leave? Leave? Well, I believe she'll leave eventually, Lalika. There's little choice, really. All I can do is hope she'll visit again. I see. Good night, Amelie. Sleep well. Whatever Amelie said in reply was lost in the darkness as Lalika stepped out of the bedroom. As she left the room, she noticed it. A dark shadow stalking through the night, slowly creeping through the hall. Lalika frowned. My lady, you must forgive me. I've rarely seen Amelie so happy. But she cannot stay. No, she must leave immediately, and I will make her. She stood on the grand staircase, outlined in the moon's glow. Sophia, you can't see me, can't hear me, but you can sense me, can you not? The shadow paused, her eyes going up to the staircase. There, she saw a shadow warp strangely across the carpeted steps. You will leave this place immediately, and you will never come back. Lalika? The blonde girl pushed a vase from a step, and it crashed to the ground below, smashing into tiny pieces. Sophia jumped in response, a shiver running down her spine. I won't warn you again. Leave. Slowly and steadily, Sophia crept up the stairs until her face was almost close enough to touch Lilika's. Is that you, Lilika? In a small motion, Lilika dropped something from her sleeve. It clattered to the ground at Sophia's feet. She gripped at her shirt even more tightly. This is your last chance. I don't care whether you live or die. This is only a favor to Amelie. As if her nerves had finally got the best of her, Sophia turned on the spot and ran, back down the staircase and into the dark hall. Lilika followed behind her, slamming doors and knocking things down to the ground. Sophia, too scared to even turn around, ran as fast as her legs would take her until she reached the front door. Instead of being locked and closed up tightly, it sat open, as if waiting for her to leave. She didn't waste even a single second more, and she was gone. She's gone. Gone. I did it. Amelie, I did it. You did what? Did you? This isn't what it looks like, Amelie. Please, listen to me. Did you force her to leave? No, I'm going after her. Lilika jumped in front of the door, arms spread open. You can't! Why? It is unsafe to do so. You belong here with me together. I've had enough of this and that being unsafe, Lilika. Either you move to the side or any friendship I thought we had is gone. Lilika wavered. Her arms, which had held such conviction, began to droop. I've always done what's best for you, have I not? All of this time, have I not remained at your side? Please trust me. I only did what I had to do. So this is what you've decided. Don't come near me again. Amelie turned her back on the blonde-haired woman, who dropped to her knees as she watched her leave. Amelie! Good night, Lilika. Darkness filled every inch of her brain. A voice screamed out from inside of her, mocking her. This isn't right. My lady, this isn't right. Didn't I do the right thing? I let her go. I did her a favor, but Amelie is upset. Her lady offered her no answer. Is this punishment? For not doing as you wished? Sophia should have died. She should have died. She should have died. Died. But now she is alive. And Amelie is angry. In that dark room, all alone, Lilika clutched onto something. Something she kept hidden in a closet, away from any prying eyes. She held it tighter. Its green dress fell apart at her touch. Can't you make this all better again? Can't we make her forget? Her forehead fell down and rested against the other person's shoulder. They remained silent, as they had been for many long years. I'm sorry. I'll make it all better. We can make her forget, can't we? Can't we start again? Just like before. We can start again. Lilika stood, placing the skeleton of her lady carefully back in the closet. Keep waiting for me. I promise I'll make everything right again. Let's start again, Amelie. You and me. Forever. Whoa. Lilika walked into the room, holding a tray carefully in her hands. On it sat a teapot and 2 cups. Amelie, I brought the tea. Excellent, it smells delicious. Amelie smiled brightly, filling Lilika with happiness in return. Lilika, may I ask you something? Of course. I found this letter by the front door. Do you know where it came from? Amelie held out an envelope. The front was blank. How strange. Perhaps it was delivered here by accident? Lilika took it from her and opened it. At the bottom it was signed, Yours always, Sophia. Yes, it seems to be someone else. I'll mail this back, yes? Thank you, Lilika. I appreciate it. Finished with her tea, Amelie stood first and left the room. Lilika smiled. From under the table, she pulled out a stack of envelopes that seemed to match the one Amelie had given to her. And all at once, she threw them into the fireplace. Goodbye, Sophia. ending 1 of 3. I hope you guys enjoyed that particular episode. Please hit that like and subscribe button for more additional content. But ooh, okay. Oh, go back. Oh. Anyway, repeat. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That actually lasts an hour and 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'll probably work on it tomorrow and upload it. But I do have school tomorrow, but I hope you guys enjoyed that as the countdown to Armored Core Rubicon begins. Hopefully I'll wrap all this up. But thank you all for all your support. This is really, really cool. And once again, thank you, Alvis. I am truly enjoying playing this. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, morning, good night, and afternoon. Ciao.